Welcome to Another Day Above Ground, a show for, by, and about baby boomers. It's the podcast for people who have no idea how to download a podcast. And now, here's your host, Dale Irvin.
Thank you, Farad, and welcome, my baby boomer buddies. You know, you are here at Another Day Above Ground. This is the website just for you, where we talk about stuff that's relevant to baby boomers. And I do that with my two boomer partners from the state of Indiana, the man I call the Aristotle of comedy, Mr. Tim Slagle.
Hey, the Fed lowered the interest rate again, apparently, or actually the first time in a decade. The interest is now lower than it was for the Democrat debates last night.
I have a savings account. I think I'm going to have to start paying them, because the interest got too low. And, of course, from Denver, Colorado, we have the lovely Carolyn Strauss.
It's still summer. It's still hot. When will it snow? I wish it would snow. I'm having my own personal summers, and it is summer. It's not good. So, yep, I'm here, and it's all good. Let's do this.
You'll remember, folks, from a couple of weeks ago, Carolyn complaining about the heat. So now she's just waiting for snow. You might want to go up to the polar ice cap or something and just roll around for a while.
Is it still there?
For the next couple of weeks, yeah.
Okay, good.
You book your tickets quick. You know, what bothers me in this world is that nobody seems to be polite anymore. Remember in school, did you take a class in civics? It was about how to be nice, and you used to get points with your letter grade on citizenship. And civics wasn't about to be nice; it was citizenship. That's what it was. Civics was about government, which is never nice. And
I remember when I was a kid that if you were in the dentist office, you would have a highlights magazine to entertain you while you were waiting to have your teeth extracted.
Yeah.
And in highlights magazine, there was a regular feature called Goofus and Gallant, and it was things that Goofus did that you probably shouldn't imitate, and Gallant showed you how to do the proper way to do things. Am I the only one that remembers this?
I do remember that. I did not remember their names, but I do remember that part of Highlights magazine. Yeah, we used to get it distributed in the school.
Yeah, and for I only remember one Goofus and Gallant cartoon is that Goofus spits out the cherry pits across the room, whereas Gallant raises his spoon to his lips to extract the cherry pits.
Wow.
And now, if they were really smart, they could take them and sew them inside a pillow, and you put that inside a microwave, and you can use it as like a heating thing. It's really great. It's called a cherry pit pillow. I'm not kidding.
You put cherry pits in a pillow, and then stick the whole pillow in a microwave.
Right. For 30 seconds, and they hold the heat. So cherry pits are magic. They hold the heat so perfectly that it'll like be either a heating thing. You can put it on your knees or your neck or whatever for like 20 minutes.
Well, there you go, my fellow boomers. You have your first tip of the day, the cherry pit pillow. We'll be following that up with the watermelon rind drapery harad holders.
And the egg white facial is coming later.
But speaking
of... here's I've got a Goofus and Gallant right here. It comes to us from West Mifflin, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Is Gallant... when Gallant needs to use the washroom, he excuses himself and uses the washroom down the hall. Goofus, police are searching for a woman they say urinated on potatoes at a Walmart in Western Pennsylvania.
No, don't tell me that. It's like the woman who licked the ice cream and put it back a couple weeks ago, and now we've got somebody peeing on potatoes. Oh, this is just gross, you guys.
Well, licking on the ice cream, that you just pull the cart out, open it, lick it, and put it back. Potatoes are sold usually in huge bins on which you'd have to climb atop, drop your trowel, and then pee on the potatoes, and they can't find this woman. How did she get away with doing that?
Well, you don't actually, if you're wearing a skirt, you don't actually have to drop anything because nobody knows what you're wearing under your skirt. So there's, it might have been easier for her than it should have been, which is tragic.
Well, actually, I'm looking at a picture of her, and it looks like she was wearing yoga pants.
Oh
Ooh.
my God.
And what's even worse, she shouldn't be wearing yoga pants. Oh my God, there's enough camel toe there for an entire nativity scene.
It's the remake of Lawrence of Arabia.
It makes me not want to have my groceries delivered because, ew, like where are they
don't know what
picking the
they're
groceries from?
Oh, yeah.
Poor potatoes sitting there going, right in my eye.
Right in my eyes. And why? People like potatoes. Why didn't she pee on the kale? You know,
Something's got to give kale flavor.
But yeah, and somebody's going to try and top this. You know, the ice cream liquor, the potato peeler. I don't know what next disgusting thing is going to happen, but I'm not really going to purchase any cucumbers for a while, just to be safe.
And here's a big surprise. It both happened at Walmart.
Yeah. Please, Walmart is the home of crazy people, and that's why I can't go in there unless I really want to, work on material.
You know what? And it wouldn't happen. Here's the thing, though. It would not happen at Whole Foods because there are so many people who work there that there's never a break where somebody's not staring at you at Whole Foods.
But all the foods at Whole Foods are fertilized organically. So that means you expect pee on them.
Yes, but that pee is good for you. We don't know where this woman's been. We don't know what she's been drinking, do we?
Well, and that's
right.
In her defense, perhaps she just had to go so bad that she just, the closest place was a tater bin, because she just had to go there because she turned into a binge drinker. That's up amongst baby boomers is binge drinking, where you drink so much that you just, I guess, pass out. Do you either?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Dale. According to the Journal of the American Geriatric Society, 1 in 10 older Americans binge drink. So so if you look down the pew at church,
the guy going for communion 5 times.
If you don't see anyone that smells a little like vodka,
Tim mentioned the reason.
You.
He said the Democratic debates for the other night. If you turn on the television, it will cause binge drinking. I really think that what's going on culturally is causing this phenomenon.
Well, and baby boomers are also back to smoking pot too. We just have to get away from all of the news of the day, and so that we don't go out and pee on potatoes and show our rage. But if you're going to binge drink, you're normally going to be sitting around the couch or something, binge watching something on TV. And I don't know if you guys have any favorites that you like to binge watch. But there's several out there that I'm stuck right now on Lilyhammer, which I believe is on Netflix. And,
oh wow!
And
that's an old one.
Oh yeah,
that one's.
I don't.
That was like you're just finally catching up. My favorite right now is on Hulu. It's Harlots.
Oh,
Harlots.
What's that about?
Yeah, it's about prostitutes in the 18th century. So it's lots of sex and wonderful costumes.
I was gonna say that it's an hour-long show because it takes 45 minutes to get through the corset. So
oh yeah. If you like bodice ripping, it is the show for you. Let me tell you. But it's also really neat because the women. It's based on two bawds. They were called. They run two bawdy houses, and one of them is kind of like a high-end bawdy house, and the other one's kind of like the pedestrian one, and the two of them are in competition. So it's got kind of that Sopranos flavor to it, where one is always trying to take out the other one. It's a delightful series. Harlots on Hulu.
Wow. Carolyn, you got any special that you've been...
I do. So I'm just finishing the fourth season of Billions on Showtime. It's New York City, high money, government versus billionaires, and it's Andrew Sorkin, who's one of my favorite producers / writers. It's just really good. So I've only got 3 episodes left, and I'm going to try to squeeze them in sometime in the next week or two. But you know what? I kind of like to save that last one because I hate when it ends. I hate when shows that I love end, because then I have to wait for them to either come back or not come back, which is even sadder.
Do you know what I hate more than a show ending, Carolyn?
What?
Is it going on until it sucks?
Yes.
The old jumping the shark.
For me,
yes.
For me, that is far more tragic than a show being over. When I really wish there were more episodes coming, that's a perfect ending.
Yeah.
It's
You're right.
I could name a couple shows that probably should have ended already, but for some reason or other are not. Walking Dead, Orange is the New Black.
The Survivor series. Really, there should be no survivors. It should be over. What is going... And the Bachelor series? Okay, no. Just stop. Stop.
And Dancing with the Stars, they are out of stars. You know, they're taking D-list celebrities who can barely walk and trying to turn them into dancers.
Well, maybe they should ask us. I mean, we're barely celebrities. They should ask us.
I can barely walk, so yeah, I'd qualify. But wow. But you know, the thing about television is that we don't know that much about it, on how it's put together and everything. We just see it from the other side of the tube, and everything looks good. But you wonder how it's put together. So we went out and we got us a guest. Mr. Bill Stainton from Seattle, Washington. This man has won 20, count them, 20.
Keep going.
21, 22, 23.
I'll just tell you, 29.
29 Emmys.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess I got an old bio. And 29
really old bio.
Who knows what TV is about? Bill, thank you for joining us.
You're
on Another
welcome,
Day
Dale.
Above Ground. As a fellow baby boomer, I assume you're one of us. Are you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Card-carrying member. The card says AARP, but still.
Not ADAG. It's a
No,
card,
right,
dude.
wrong card.
Well, you know, you've been in a TV world for a long time. What's it like on the other side of the tube?
Well, it's kind of cool. You get a lot of Emmys. And now, to be fair, I have not been in it for a few years because they tend to ship people like me out and bring in fresh, inexpensive people. So that's kind of how that goes.
Which means that the Emmys don't mean Billy Squat. Then.
The Emmys,
Yeah.
Actually, the Emmys really don't mean anything whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of like awards and speaking.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Yeah, very, very, very similar. Tragic footnote, though, or side note, or some kind of note, is in Seattle we had an earthquake. You know, kind of a little bit of a rock and roller a few years ago, about 10 or 15 years ago, and I lost 10 Emmys because they're really fragile statues. So.
Wow, what did they go for on eBay?
I've thought about that, but right now they live in my garage. I have a bag of broken Emmys in my garage, which I think if I ever write my memoirs, that's got to be the title, don't you think?
I got a stack of broken
Bag of broken
and a few car parts.
And the older you get, the lower that sack gets.
And that is so true. Really.
Yeah,
It's really a different story. But when you sit down and you feel like you're making tea, it's a whole different.
But the dogs enjoy it.
Tim, are you stuck? You're usually laughing with me.
Oh my gosh.
What is what tell us the process. What did you get an Emmy for?
I got Emmys for three categories: producing, writing, and performing. Most of them were for producing. It was cool. You know, you're talking about the changes between television then and now. I am so glad I'm not producing television now.
Why?
Well, first of all, we were a late night show. We were on. It was a comedy show. We were on in Seattle on the NBC affiliate from 11:30 to 12. We actually pushed SNL back a half an hour.
If I remember correctly, and this was a long time ago, almost live.
Yeah, very good. Almost live. Very good. Yeah. That was, and we were on Comedy Central for a couple of years.
Which is perfect for a show about baby boomers, almost live. Keep going.
Yeah. Right. It's got a much richer meaning now than it did when we were in our 20s. Okay, that one he liked. Okay. For those of you keeping score. But then, we could just produce the show and then go out drinking. That was it. If we were doing that show now, because we shot it about 9:30 at night, and then it played back at 11:30. Now we'd have to be in the studio at 11:30 live tweeting it, and we'd have to have a Facebook page and keep updating that, and we'd have to engage with our viewers, and that's just I have no interest in that whatsoever. So it really was one-way communication, but that's kind of the way I liked it.
Tim, did you have a question?
No, it was already answered. I didn't know what the show was, and
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was an easy one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, we hadn't mentioned it. We were saying he's won Emmys. He's won lots of Emmys, and we did. And it took you about 5 minutes to find out what the Emmys were for, and then the show. Were all 29 Emmys for that show? Is that?
Yes. All 29 Emmys were for that show. Yes, okay. I have no versatility whatsoever.
You also probably had no competition in the category.
People have asked me. I know people who are like newscasters. And they've got like 7 Emmys. And I think, but that's a tough category. So when people say, so how do you win 29 Emmys? Yeah, that's it. You work in a category that has no competition. It doesn't hurt.
Now, you're also the world's foremost, as far as I know, and I don't know that many people, but the world's foremost Beatles expert.
I'm up there. I'm not the world's foremost, but I'm up there. In fact, for a while, until I changed my website for some other stuff for legal reasons because of, well, never mind. But it used to be that if you Googled the term Beatles expert, I came up number 1 in the world.
In front of Paul McCartney?
Yeah, well, because he doesn't write a lot of blogs about being a Beatles expert. Now, pretty much all that got me was about 3 or 4 times a week, I'd get a call from some junior high school kid who's doing a history project. So, question number 1: who were the Beatles?
Well, there is no contest. I mean, there is no World Series of Beatles experts. I mean,
that you know of, because you're not in that world. But
is there
you
actually
go to
is
Beatles
there actually
conventions.
a
There are trivia contests, but there's no Emmy for it. So I'm not interested.
So have you seen the new movie yesterday?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of that? I mean, for those of you guys who haven't heard about it,
I haven't heard about it.
Oh,
really?
It's already today.
It's already said. No, the premise of the movie is that somehow some weird electrical thing happens in the world, and all of a sudden the Beatles never existed, except there's this one guy who's a struggling singer-songwriter who remembers them, but he's like the only guy. So he Googles them, and they don't exist, nothing exists, and but he's a struggling singer-songwriter, and now he's got access to all these, he remembers all these songs that the rest of the world has never heard, so he kind of puts them forward as his own, and hilarity ensues.
What did you think of that?
I love the premise. I wish they'd gone a little deeper with it. It basically was a romantic comedy with that as a background context.
Oh.
It would have been nice if they had explored, again, in a comedic way, okay, really, how would the world have been different had the Beatles not existed? It would have been kind of cool. And, for me as a Beatles geek, that would have been fun to explore.
Now, I've heard you do a program where you say how the Beatles can improve business. And as baby boomers, how do you think the Beatles can improve our lives?
There are a few things I talk about, and I won't give you the whole keynote, of course. But
no, we don't have time. Or the money.
Or the interest, frankly.
Mostly the money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a number of things they did, and not all of them were intentional. But for example, the first one I talk about spreading the spotlight and focusing on the team rather than the individual ego. And I tell the story of July 6, 1957, which was the day that John Lennon first met Paul McCartney. John had his own little band called the Quarrymen. They were playing, and they played 2 sets on that day for a little party. And during the break between the 2 sets, John Lennon gets introduced to this kid, Paul McCartney, who's better than him at everything. Better guitar player, better singer, better looking. And, John Lennon, he's a 16-year-old kid. Why do you play rock and roll when you're 16?
Chicks.
Exactly. The last thing you want is competition from somebody who's better at everything. So Lennon had to make this decision, should I keep the spotlight just on me, or should I invite this McCartney fella? I mean, at 16, he was able to put his ego. I couldn't do that now. Put my ego aside and bring in somebody who's that much stronger. But if he hadn't, we never would have heard of the Beatles.
But now it just happens, Bill. It's just so depressing right now. Yeah. There's always just somebody younger and
they're
stronger.
all
It's all good.
That's right. You go to Walmart and there's places loaded with people who are better than me at everything.
Here's a question I'd like a Beatles expert to answer, at least your opinion, because none of us really know the answer. Who was really guilty, Yoko or Linda?
Of breaking up the Beatles?
Yeah.
If it's only between those, it's more Yoko than Linda, but it was not Yoko. Yoko was not a cause. She was a symptom. The Beatles were breaking up anyway over financial and business dealings. Yoko just kind of exacerbated it. Trust me, the 2 most painful hours of my life were a Yoko Ono concert.
Yeah. Most painful minutes of my life were when I first started to hear the record.
Yeah.
But I find it ironic, as you said, that he wasn't sure of teaming up with Paul McCartney because he was better looking than him. Yeah. And then when he met Ono, he seemed to get over that because she's better looking than,
yeah, he's
a rock.
Well, he got older.
Come on, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
If he's poked his eyes out with it.
I think it was her singing voice, frankly. That really.
I think it was the naked popcorn, but that's just me.
That could be.
Yeah.
What was the naked popcorn?
They used to lay in bed and eat naked popcorn. That was a story, right? Isn't
Yeah,
that true?
yeah.
Am I wrong?
What is naked popcorn?
Well,
They were naked. The popcorn was just popcorn.
Oh, popcorn was
So
fully
they still
clothed.
had the butter on the popcorn.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure.
They made their own butter.
Do you have any ideas for any future TV shows, or any desire to go back into that business, especially maybe a TV show about baby boomers that you'd be looking for help on?
That would be
For hosts.
that would be kind of cool, and it's weird. I was just talking with somebody earlier today. There still is no place on the planet that I feel more at home than in a TV studio. That said, that's.
For me, it's a bathroom.
Yeah. That said, I don't want to go back. I mean, I was successful there. Why risk that? It's kind of nice having the legacy of the glory days. Oh yeah, well, prove it now. No, thanks. No, I'm good. I'm okay with that. Yeah. So no, those days are done, as are most other days.
But no desire to try and sell your own script or anything, or come up with a show. No. Does that make me less ambitious? Does that make me a loser?
No,
not really. It makes you.
No, that doesn't make you a loser. Here's what makes you a loser. In part 2 of today's interview. Let me just turn the page. If we can get the flip chart out here.
So one more tip on how the Beatles can help your life.
Okay, let's see. One of the things. Well, okay, another thing is to have kind of a single focus. Figure out what it is that you can do best. So often, like remember in the old days when we had real jobs and you'd have the odious performance appraisal, like once a year there'd be a performance appraisal.
Yeah.
And it would always go like this. It would say, okay, Dale, here's what you're good at. Okay, that's great. Here's all the stuff that you suck at. Now, what I want you to do for the next year is focus exclusively on the stuff you suck at. Right? That's putting it the wrong way. The Beatles figured out. What is it that they can do better than anyone else? Now they had
3 whole chords and maybe 1 extra. They had 4 whole chords.
Oh, they had a lot more.
Oh, all right.
But for them, I mean, they had a lot of strengths. Great vocals, great bass player, that kind of. But for them, it was songwriting. I mean, they simply wrote better songs than anyone else. That's the only reason we're still talking about the Beatles. If it were just their humor or their hair or anything like that, we wouldn't. They would have been a flash in the pan '60s band. But because their songwriting was better than anyone else's, and they chose to focus most of their energies on that. So I would say for those of you who are out in the real world, in the business world, if you have teams or something, figure out what it is that you can do better than anyone else, what your individual team members can do better than anyone else, and find a way to be able to focus 80% of your energies on what you do best. Don't ignore the stuff you suck at, but just don't live there. Live in the stuff you do best.
One other quick question. Do millennials or people who are under 30 really get the Beatles? Do they know who they were?
Yeah, they do. And here's why. Because when I do my Beatles keynote, the audiences get younger and younger. I stay the same age, of course, as we all do, but the audiences are getting younger. Yeah.
Just a wider gap.
Just a wider gap.
Exactly.
But They do, because first of all, everybody still knows who the Beatles are. The songs still hold up. And one of the things I point out is even if there's kids in their 20s in the audience, when the Beatles ended in 1970, when they finally broke up in 1970, none of the 4 Beatles had hit 30 years old yet.
Oh my God.
So they were the age of the people in my audiences. If the audiences are in their 20s or something like that, I can say this. Now, when they were doing this, when they were changing everything, that's when they were. So don't tell me you don't have the ability to, I'm too young to make a difference. I'm too young to do anything. Yeah, tell that to the Beatles, because that's what they did. So, and all of a sudden then it's kind of relevant to their world. Plus I bring in stories from Nirvana and Pearl Jam and other people I used to hang out with. So
I think it's also, I think a lot of the young people are more familiar with baby boomer music because it's used in movies. It's and I think
it is
the Beatles
used in movies,
music
and their
used
parents
a lot.
still play it. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So they do hear it in like movies like Yesterday and other things like that. Yeah, it's a really good point.
So just as a takeaway tip for our baby boomer listeners, let your kids listen to the Beatles as opposed to just going downtown looking for some tush.
Well, those aren't mutually exclusive, though.
Wow, parenting advice brought to you by Another Day Above Ground.
Well, on behalf of all of us, Mr. Bill Stainton, multiple Emmy Award winner.
How many?
29 or did
Yeah,
I?
no, 29.
Holy
Very good.
Christmas, too bad you
I
couldn't have won
wanted
one
to check
more.
the baby
That's
boomer
wrong number.
memory. I know.
Much like the Beatles, not over 30.
Wow.
Very nice.
Wow.
That's why we call him the Aristotle of comedy. For that reason right there.
Because he's wrong about most everything.
But when he's right,
But when
it's very good.
he's
Yeah.
right. No, best line so far. Good for Tim.
Anyhow, thank you very much for being with us. Where
My
can
pleasure.
people reach you if they'd like to learn more about what you do?
Well, they can visit me in Seattle, but I'm usually not home. I shouldn't say that. No. Just go to my website, billstainton.com. BILLSTAINTON.com.
And if you know where he lives, remember he's very seldom home. So there you go. That's like posting pictures of vacation on Facebook.
Really should not have said that, should I?
Thank you very much. We hope you learned something from this segment.
I sure have.
And it's those type of things that you'll learn here every week on Another Day Above Ground. So that's it for another week. Carolyn, any final words?
Just got some Beatles songs in my head. Love, love, love. So I'm sending you guys love.
Okay, turn off your microphone. And
You guys can edit the singing out. I apologize.
and Tim, how about you?
Check out my other podcast, Rule of Three with Tim Schlegel and Bent Washburn.
All right, and please visit our website, anotherdayaboveground.com. And if you go on there, you can leave us a note or a message and let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about as far as baby boomer wants and needs and cares and concerns. And you can also go to my website, daleirvin.com, sign up for the Friday Funnies, which will come to your email inbox, and it's a quick recap look of the weirder stories in the week's news, as both a video and a written compliment. Other than that, my friends, please go out and enjoy the rest of today, because today is Another Day Above Ground.
And that's it for Another Day Above Ground. For Dale, Tim, and Carolyn, I'm Farad Muhammad. Thanks for listening.